I'm going to review Kung Fu Panda 4 and these other movies. And I'm going to read a poem called My Camera. And we'll see how that goes. Well, I got to get around here. I don't want to break my another leaf. Things are crowded in here. I still haven't... I moved the my one plant, so I'm probably going to get a wet bum here. I got to wet everything else already.
Yeah.
Moving the Hoya, the one Hoya, the other one's dead.
Yeah,
But
it was really looking comfy up here.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be comfy where you moved it to.
I hope so. It'll stay there all summer long. Well, we'll see. So this is my poem, My Camera, and I wrote it today, May 30th, 2024. While in the park each day I see so many other people who are filming nature much like me. Although they all have cameras too, their makes are fancier than mine. My camera's cheap and pretty old, yet I suppose it works just fine, and since it's small, it's light to hold. Their cameras seem to weigh a lot, like infants that they pack along to proudly show to nature, not just film it. But I'm likely wrong. Perhaps it's just my jealousy that makes me think each time we pass, photographers are seeing me as of a simpler, poorer class. The real photographers don't say a thing to make me feel less real. Yet I feel less than anyway. It's not an awesome way to feel. I eye their cameras, they eye mine, and then pretend they hadn't though. They sometimes say that mine's just fine for filming birds on video. My videos can be okay when autofocus sees the bird, but if a branch is in the way, then autofocus is absurd. My camera's hues are far too gray, and yet it's been dependable, a faithful friend I hold each day to help me make life memorable. And life's more memorable each day my camera comes along with me to capture visions on our way through life. It sees the things I see, though life seems duller than it's through its eye. But if its eye was clear and new, then would its visions be a lie? My eyes are getting older too. By times my videos work well. By times my camera helps me see some distant birds so I can tell their type while they're within a tree. I guess that's really all I need. My camera's just enough for me. With more, I'd just be feeding greed along with insecurity. They have their cameras, I'll keep mine and love the things it helps me see. While it survives, it suits me fine each day it views the park with me. That's that. Although it didn't view anything today with me. I brought it along on a walk, but and I could have filmed something cute, but I didn't. I don't know why I didn't. I felt funny because it was in somebody's yard, you know, so I felt funny filming something in somebody's yard. I know they wouldn't mind because people do all the time in their yard, but I just feel weird. So anyway, Kung Fu Panda 4. The animation's fun and whatever.
It's hard to imagine something that kind of roly-poly doing kung fu.
I guess that's part of the comedy or whatever.
I guess.
I don't care for these movies. I was looking at 4. Like how many of I'm sure I must have missed some because I was surprised to see 4. So anyway, whatever. It still got top of the stack because this other stuff was not so good. So Upgrade is entertaining enough. It's a horror movie. And, I mean, there's just something, like at one point James walked in and he said, wouldn't he be electrocuting himself too? And I was like, yeah, what's worse is that he has like some sort of computer thing in his mind, so wouldn't that fry the computer? And so, I mean, so I don't know. They were
took his opponent and put a bear hug on him. And he had some sort of a live wire on the guy's back, and I think it would have transferred.
I think I learned that in grade 5. I think the transfer of electricity. So through people, which it was an interesting experiment. I remember they were like, okay, we're all going to hold hands in the classroom, and the last person's going to get the shock, and nobody else is going to get the shock, and everyone in the class, we were kind of looking at each other. Well, I don't want to be last, like I don't want to learn this experiment. I don't want to learn this lesson.
I didn't want anything to do with that. I couldn't stand shocks. Yeah, when I
But
was a kid.
so some brave child decided to be last and got the shock and said it wasn't that bad, but they felt it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know. It's, I guess you want a horror movie to be really believable. If you do, then that might bother you. But there's some good action, like fight scenes and stuff like that. Whatever. It's entertaining enough, I suppose. I mean, I've watched it before. I forgot that I watched it, so I watched it again, and it was entertaining enough again. So, whatever. This would not be. Final Portrait. I thought that Jeffrey Rush did a great job. I don't know if he has ever disappointed me with how he's acted. He's always done a great job, but this is really boring. It's about an artist who's doing a portrait of somebody, and he's like, oh yeah, just postpone your trip a little bit, and the guy's like, it's taking forever. He keeps postponing the trip, and the portrait is taking, every time he does a certain sequence of steps, and the guy who's sitting, the model is sitting there going, every time he does this step, then I know the next step is he's going to block out the whole thing and start again, right? So it's very frustrating for him. And eventually he has to just decide, okay, well, I'm not going to sit anymore for this artist because it's not ever going to finish. So anyway, yeah.
So
now
this
I've given you the story, you
guy
don't need
is
to watch
Army
it.
Hammer. It's just a weird name. I think it's a pun on Arm and Hammer. You ever seen Arm and Hammer? What is that?
You think his
Starch or
parents had
something?
a sense of humor then?
Yeah, exactly right.
All right.
That is Starch. That's Arm and Hammer. Arm and Hammer, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. But apparently, Arm and
it's
Hammer
big
was
story, I think.
kind of a commie sympathizer, maybe even supporting
Oh,
the guy.
interesting.
Yeah, or maybe uninteresting. I don't know.
Mm.
I could have got it wrong.
The Wolf House got bottom of the stack.
Claymation?
Well, no, it seems to. Well, there's different kinds of art in there, so they were really trying. I guess the Chilean government funded this, and I mean, I was just sitting there watching this thing and thinking, like it says, it's exquisitely handcrafted surrealist docu-horror fairy tale. There's the only thing horror about this is the thought that the Chilean taxpayers funded this thing, like with their actual work, rather than what this ended up being. This was really awful. It's
Is it a left-leaning
just because it's a
government that
horrible
supported it?
movie doesn't make it a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's
yeah, there you go. Good, well put.
yeah, it was really bad. Anyway, whatever. It's not worth watching. Don't watch it. It's a waste of time. And they make it, like, I was thinking, okay, well, is this going to be a half an hour or something? If it's going to be a half an hour, I can sit through this. No, it's not. I should have read the box first. 73 minutes. That is too long for this. This was garbage. All right, so you can go on and talk about the Bible again.
German religious fanatics. Good call. Sounds as though this was funded by lefties. You know, Chile, one of Chile's darkest periods was just coming on when Salvador Allende was collaborating with commies and stuff like that. I don't mourn his death in the least.
All right, you have 20 minutes.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Oh. Actually, I can read this print. Okay, well, I think it's because it's good light out here. Good enough for a while. So, are all religions about peace, love, and flowers? That's the question I'll be asking. And I'll be coming up with tentative answers. I mean, just taking selections. These could be not random selections, but selectively selected by me. I encourage you, if you're in the least bit interested, to do what I did. This is a space of 16 days. Go through the English Bible if you're English speaking, whatever. I'm not Afrikaans speaking by any means, but I taught myself to basically read Afrikaans. It's pretty simple. The vocabulary in the Bible, particularly the New Testament, as I recall, is quite simple, quite basic. And go through and get not a random sampling, but get a whole sampling, what's in there. And don't fall asleep. Oh, like Judges. I can barely recall what happened. I don't do that. Stay awake to what's happening. Judges is full, the book of Judges is full of what in today's terms are war crimes. That's a whole book. Okay. Understand, I think the Jewish nation now is the most civilized nation in the world. And it might be by far the most civilized. But that's not necessarily saying Israel is the most civilized nation state in the world, but it is by far the most civilized nation state in all of the Middle East, and that is by far, because it's amazing what they put up with from the so-called Palestinians, well, the Philistines. I prefer to call them Palashtu. That's what the ancient Assyrians called the inhabitants of the present-day Gaza Strip. An area that would be slightly larger than the Gaza Strip is now Palashtu. So that's Palestinian. Palestinians are, the name comes from the five, I guess you could call it like a pentabulus, the five main cities. I guess maybe there was something like city-states back in ancient days of Philistia. That's the Hebrew name for Palashtu, Philistia. There we go. I think it's something like Palestine in Arabic. That's a better designation than Palestine. Palestine is basically a Latin misrendering of the name. Anyway, all of the ones that I've mentioned, all of the names I've mentioned would be misrenderings of the original. I don't know if we've got any survivals of the ancient Philistine language. But anyway, here we go. This guy was somewhat of a hero for the compilers of Kings. And this is 2 Kings, chapter 10, verses 18 through 28. And you'll have to bear with me in case I can't translate all of the Afrikaans into English. So the next chapter, after verse 28, the provided title of the section going from verse 29 to 36 is the idolatry and death of Jehu. But originally, I guess, for these compilers, Jehu was a good guy. Now, we actually apparently have a record of Jehu in the Assyrian annals, so don't go imagining that Jehu is a legendary figure or a mythic figure. He might be as portrayed here, but the Assyrians, it's claimed, actually this Shalmaneser III and his artist really, portrayed Jehu polishing his beard on Shalmaneser III's sandals. That was an Assyrian expression, incidentally. I don't know if it was standard, like a cliche. It's used at least once in a letter written maybe 100 years later to the Assyrian king by one of his underlings. And so yeah, Jehu, it's a sculpture in relief of him, or a reasonable facsimile. Some guy from Bit Omri, I think they identified as Bit Omri, maybe not. It could have been some other kings. for example, Ahaziah, is he a Jewish or Israelite king? Can't remember. But it has Yah in it, and the Yehu rendered in Syrian script, I think it's inscription goes with the relief. I think it has Jehu there, but that could be Yehu or something like that. Don't go thinking it's just Jehu. Right? For this time period, they've actually got the Assyrian chronology not quite matched up with the Israelite chronology, the chronology of the 10 lost tribes, the later 10 lost tribes. And Jehu had the whole people come together and said to them, Ahab, that's spelled A-G-A-B, but it'd be pronounced Ahab, something like that, has served Baal. So that's the name that's preserved in Beelzebub or Beelzebub. That means Lord of the Flies. Baal means something like Lord or Master or something like that, maybe an owner. Has served Baal a little bit. So Baal was a god of Beelzebub, I think, was the god of Ekron, nowadays called Tel Mikne. And it was one of the 5 main cities of the Philistines. He's Ahab, so that was the king of Israel before Jehu. Ahab served Baal a little bit. Jehu will serve him a lot. Call then now all the prophets of Baal, all his servants, and all his priests to come to me. No one must be missed, because I have a great sacrifice to Baal, or I will have a great sacrifice to Baal. Each who's missed won't live. But Jehu had this with craftiness done, had done this with craftiness in order to exterminate the servants of Baal. So they're explaining what his motives were. Further, so they don't even give a spoiler alert there. Further, Jehu said, consecrate a feast for Baal, or festival, something like that. And they had it, they declared. Jehu had also sent through all of Israel, so this would be a message. And all the servants of Baal had come, so that there was no one who hadn't come. And the temple of Baal, and gone into the temple of Baal. The word order in most of the Germanic languages is significantly different than the word order in English. So that's why I'm kind of stumbling, but I'm translating the stuff as I go along. So that the temple of Baal was full from end to end, and yet end tot end. So pretty well the same locution as English, just tot is different, end is the same. And he said to the one who was supervisor of the cloakroom, basically, Kerakam, bring clothing out, or garments out, for all the servants of Baal. And he had for them, and he had brought the garments out for them. Thereon, Jehu went with Jonadab, the son of Rechab, into the temple of Baal, and said to the servants of Baal, investigate and see if anyone, perhaps any of the servants of the Lord, that would be the Lord God, perhaps here among you. But just the servants of Baal alone. So he wants to make sure that no servants of the Lord, priests, so on and so forth, are there. Just servants of Baal. And they had gone in and offerings, sacrifices of slaughtered sacrifices and burnt offerings, then prepared. But Jehu had for himself outside 80 men set up, and said, He who one of the men that I deliver into your hands lets go free, his life will be in the place of that life be. So he's basically saying, if one of you lets one of these guys loose or free, you'll pay for it with your life. And when he ready was with the and beating, I think it's invitations to the burnt offering, Jehu said to the runners, so those would be messengers, I guess. Hard lopers is hard lopers or hard runners. And the adjutants, I don't know, kind of like aides or something like that. We've got that in English. Come in, strike them dead, let no one come escape. One of the troubles is they use double negatives as a matter of practice, as they do in French generally, in Afrikaans. So you'll have a knee and then da pa 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 and then a knee, and that's basically one negative. So it kind of gets confusing if you're doing a running translation. It would be really hard, of course, if you were translating spoken stuff. People who work at the United Nations doing that sort of stuff are stunningly good at languages. Stunningly good. And they had them with the edge, they say sharpness of the sword, but the edge of the sword, they slew them, or they killed them with the edge of the sword. And the runners and the adjutants had thrown them, that would be the dead bodies, I guess, thrown them out, and then to the and then went to the quarter, the city quarter of the, and then had gone to the city quarter of the Baal temple, and had the pillars of the Baal temple brought out and burned. So this is a crime against humanity, right? In today's terms, they're destroying a cultural, it's cultural architecture, basically, pillars. And the rock pillars of Baal they broke off, and had broken Baal's temple basically down, and I'm not sure about Gamak houses, but and it made some sort of houses made until down to today, when they were compiling this. Okay. So Jehu then had exterminated Baal out of Israel. Exterminated is not quite the proper term, but I'm getting kind of exhausted going through doing this. Like I say, I hadn't, I just write down a cheat sheet of all the stuff and so on and so forth. So there's only one word in there, Gamak, that I didn't get. So that's something in the order of 11 verses. That's fairly good. I taught myself that. Pretty well entirely in 16 days. Now I have the advantage, of course. I had the advantage of learning Dutch. Afrikaans is a form of Dutch, but there's significant difference. And I did that basically by going through several Agatha Christie novels. I think it's up to 4, and then I've started several other novels or books, collections of short stories, in the original English and in the Dutch, just going back and forth and saving myself huge amounts of time looking up vocabulary in a dictionary, Dutch-English dictionary. And I recommend that if you can get hold of something, particularly something with a fairly easy vocabulary as you get in Agatha Christie. It's not really complicated. I'd recommend that. It saves you a huge amount of time. One time, one person called me a genius. I said, I'm not a genius. Why? There's no such thing. But there are people who work smart, work hard, and I guess I do. And the third part was, we're courageous. And I guess I am. Because I really don't care. Now, some of it is like false courage, but it's not like comes from drinking. I'm a teetotaler. It's I don't have a job to lose. Hopefully, with the stuff that I say, I don't yet have my life to lose. We live in an increasingly less free society, but yeah, they say freedom of speech is dead in Europe, and I'm afraid they're largely right. And they've been saying it for quite a while. This shouldn't be shocking news to folks out there. Of course, there's some folks that are, just heresy to say that. I don't really care. Like I say, maybe that's false courage, but I really don't care. But the second thing I said was, there are people who try to work smart, and avoiding using a bilingual dictionary, it seems to me, is working smart when you're learning a language. Now, if you're going to do an intense kind of like study of something or a translation of something, you better be using a bilingual dictionary. For one thing, doing a translation, you don't want to be looking at someone else's translation. You want to go from the original, because hopefully this isn't news for you folks, but when you get even standard translations, sometimes they're like the first recognized translation, the translation of All Quiet on the Western Front, the one that's kind of like standard with paperback stuff, is got some real howlers in it. The standard translation, again, it's into paperback, and a prestigious book company, I can't remember what it is offhand, but the Magic Mountain, Salzburg, leaves substantial passages out. I'm not talking about leaving out words and stuff like that, or phrases. It can be whole sentences, as I recall. And when you got a stylist like Thomas Mann, I mean, you can even, given the low level of reading knowledge I have of German, it's not state of the art. I can sense that Mann is a stylist, Thomas Mann, or Thomas Mann, however you want to